Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, you're welcome to Sew with Mediva. And if you're a returning subscriber or a returning viewer, thank you for sticking to my channel. So in today's video, I recreated the viral backless shirt, but I made mine with a twist. I added a back panel to it and then I inserted a belt on the waist area for fitting. And this is what the back looks like. You can see how beautiful it looks. So if you find this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, share to your loved ones, and also subscribe to my channel. So to make this top, I made use of 2 yards of this beautiful African print fabric. Although I have 3 yards here, I'm going to use the remaining one to make a short. And I have my other sewing materials here, my chalk, my scissors, my ruler, and my tape rule. So let's jump right into the tutorial. So we're going to start with the back panel. I have my fabric cut out already and it's in a fold. To get the wideness of fabric to fold, you're going to divide the biggest part of your body by 4. Mine is my hip measurements divided by 4, which is 11 inches, and I added 3 extra inches to it for ease and for seam allowance. So I have about 14 inches on fold. And for the length of this top, I'm going to first of all mark out the shoulder line, and then I'll come down to mark the full length of the top. So the full length of my top is 27 inches and I added 1 extra inch to it for the folding allowance. After that, I'll come over to the closed angle of my fabric and mark the neckline. The width of the back neckline is 3 inches while the depth is 1 inch, and then I'll connect the points together. So still from that same point, I'm going to take my shoulder measurements divided by 2, which is 8 inches for me, and just mark it out there. And then from that 8 inches I marked, I'll come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope. So make sure to work with your own measurements, and then I'll connect it all the way to the neckline. From that point, I'll come down to mark from my shoulder to my chest line, which is 8 inches normally, but since it's a sleeveless top, I'm going to remove 1 inch and just use 7 inches. So to get your chest line, divide your bust measurement by 6 and add 1.5 inches to it, and then I'll further extend the line this way. After that, I'll place my tape rule on the shoulder line and come down to mark my hip line. From my shoulder to my hip is 24 inches, and I'll extend the line this way. And I'll also mark from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10.5 inches. And then I'll also extend the line. So we're not going to be needing the shoulder to the waist measurement since we're going to snatch with a belt. So on the bust line, I'll mark my round bust measurements divided by 4, which is 10.5 inches. I'll add half an inch for ease and 1 inch for seam allowance to make 12 inches. So I'll mark that same measurement on the chest line. So go ahead to work with your own measurements. And on the hip line, I'll mark the round hip measurements divided by 4, add half an inch for ease and 1 inch for seam allowance. And then mark the same thing on the full length. So you can decide to work with 1 inch ease allowance. It just depends on what you want. Then I'll go ahead to connect all the points together this way. After that, I'll come over to the shoulder area and just look for the midpoint, which is about 2.5 inches. That is where I'll be starting my armhole curve from, and then go ahead to curve it in all the way down. So along the line, I still went ahead to reduce this shoulder measurement. I'll show you guys. So this is basically all for the back panel of this shirt. Let's go ahead to cut it out. And then I'll cut out the neckline. So this is basically all for the back part of this shirt. So we're going to use this back panel now to cut out the front. So I have the fabric for the front panel cut out already and it's in a fold. So this front panel fabric is bigger than the back because of the button allowance. So I added an extra 3 inches to this fold. So I have about 17 inches on fold here. So this is because of the button allowance in front. So that's the first thing we're going to do. From the closed angle of my fold, I'm going to take 2.5 inches all the way down, and then I'll connect the points together. So this is what we have. So I'm going to take the back panel now and place it on that line. I'll place the center back directly on that line. So since the front and the back are the same measurements, the only difference is this 2.5 inches allowance. I'm going to go ahead now and just cut it out. So after cutting, the neckline for the front is going to be 3 inches depth. So I'll add extra 2 inches to the one I already cut out and just cut it out. I'll set the back panel aside and notch the point where my button allowance stopped. Just go ahead to notch it, and then I'll rip the center front opened. So after opening up, this is what we have, two pieces for the front panel. So right now I'm going to iron my stay to the 2.5 inches button allowance on the wrong side of my fabric. So I'll go ahead to iron stay to this 2.5 inches allowance only, and I'll do the same thing for the other one. So after ironing, this is what it looks like. So the next thing we want to do is to fold in the button allowance. So remember we took 2.5 inches for this allowance. We're only going to be folding 1.5 inches. The remaining 1 inch is going to serve as the overlap allowance. So the first thing I'm going to do is to fold in half an inch this way and iron it all the way down. And then I'll fold in another 1 inch so that it ends directly on that notched point. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. So you're going to fold in half an inch first and then fold in 1 inch, and you can see it's going to stop directly on the notched point, which is the 2.5 inches mark, and then iron it so that it lays down flat. So make sure to iron it before you stitch so that it is easier and neater. Now repeat the same process on the other side. I'll fold in half an inch first and fold in 1 inch, and then go ahead to iron it so that it lays down flat. So when I'm done doing that, I'll show you guys what it looks like. So guys, after I iron the towels, this is what we have. The next thing I'm going to do is to take it to my sewing machine and stitch it all the way down this way. And I'll repeat the same process for the other side. When I'm done doing all of that, I'll show you guys what it looks like. After stitching down, this is what we have. You can see how neat it looks now, and this is the wrong side. The next thing we want to do is to join the front and the back panels together. And I'm going to start with the shoulders. So like I said earlier, I still made a little adjustment to the shoulder of this dress, the width of the shoulder, which I'm going to show you guys now. So I placed the back panel on it this way, and I came in by 1.5 inches from the armhole, and then I'll go ahead to just curve it in. So you can decide to make yours more, or you can decide to make it less. It just depends on what you want. So I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'll come in by 1.5 inches again, and then form a curve all the way to the side, and then proceed to cut it out. I hope you guys understand. So this is what we have now after doing all of that. So I'm going to place the back panel facing the front panel, making sure the right sides are facing each other, and then I'll go ahead to join the shoulders using half an inch. I'll repeat the same thing on the other side, and I'll show you guys. So guys, after joining the shoulders, this is what we have. The next thing we want to do is to finish up the armhole opening with our bias strip. You can also use your fabric to do the finishing. So on the right side, I'm going to place my bias strip this way and open it up, and then go ahead to stitch it all the way down with about 1/4 inch. When I'm done with that, I'll notch it and turn it over to the wrong side, and also stitch it all the way down. So after doing that, I'll do the same thing for the other one and show you guys. So guys, after I finished up the armhole, this is what it looks like. The next thing I want to do is to close up the side. But before I do that, I want to make a curved design on the side of my shirt. So I'm going to fold it into 4 this way. And I'll come over to this side and come up by 2 inches, and then just curve it all the way in, and then cut it out. So this is optional. You can decide to leave yours straight if you want to. So this is what we have after creating the curved design. So to get a snatched effect on the waist, we're going to be attaching a belt on the waistline of this shirt. So I'm going to flip it over to the wrong side now. And from the shoulder, I'll come down to the waistline. So my shoulder to my waistline is 16 inches. I'll just go ahead to mark it out with my chalk and notch it on both fabrics. And on the other side, I'll repeat the same process. Mark your shoulder to your waistline, and then notch that point on the 2 fabrics. So I'll go ahead to cut out my belt now, and then I'll show you guys next thing to do. So for the belt, I'm going ahead to cut out the fabric, and the length is about 30 inches for each belt, while the width is about 4.5 inches. So I'll go ahead to fold this fabric into 2 this way, and then stitch it all the way down using 1/4 inch. And when I get to this point, I'll close up the base. So the width of my belt will be 2 inches. So you can make your belt wider. It just depends on what you want. I'll put the same process on the other side. I'll turn it over to the right side and show you guys. So guys, after I turned over, this is what it looks like. The next thing you want to do is to attach it to your shirt. So I'll get my shirt now on that notched point. You can try to place your belt at the center of the notch, above the notch or below the notch, just depends on what you want. But for mine, I placed my belt above the notch. So this is my top, right side facing each other. I'm going to fix my belt in between it this way, just above the notch, and then I would pin it down. And then go ahead to stitch it all the way down using my 1 inch seam allowance. I hope you guys understand. So make sure you are stitching down the open side of your belt, as you can see. So I'm going to place the open angle of my belt inside my shirt this way, and then I'll place the front panel on it. I'll go ahead to pin it down and I use my 1 inch to close it up. After that, I'll also finish up the base of my shirt by folding in twice and stitching all around. When I'm done doing all of that, I'll show you guys what it looks like. So guys, I've gone ahead to close up the sides. You can see the belt, and I also finished the base of my shirt, and this is what we have. So the next one I want to work on is the collar, and the first thing you're going to do is to measure around the neckline. So open up the neckline of your shirt like this and measure all around it. So make sure to do this carefully so that you can get the correct measurement. So for mine, I got exactly 19 inches. So I've gone ahead to cut out the fabric I'll be using to make my collar, and the length of this fabric is 21 inches, which is that 19 inches I measured on the neckline plus 2 extra inches, and the width is about 4.5 inches. So one of this fabric is going to serve as the lining, and we're going to be using a simple cut together collar. So the first thing I'm going to do is to come up to mark 2 inches, which is going to be the collar stand. I'll come up by 2 inches from the base and then connect the points together. After that, I'll go ahead to fold my fabric into 4. Go ahead to fold it into 4 this way, and then on the open side of the fold, I will come in by 1.5 inches on this line I marked. After doing that, I'll take my ruler and form a slant all the way up this way, and then I would form a curve from that same point all the way down to create the collar design. I hope you guys can see what I did. So you should have something that looks just like this, and then I'll go ahead to cut it out. So after cutting out, when you open up, this is what you will have. So right now, I'll go ahead to iron my ear stay to the wrong side of my fabrics. So you can try to use a collar stand for yours if you have one, but for mine, I just ironed my ear stay to it, and then I folded in 1/2 inch towards the collar stand area. So you're going to have some excesses, just go ahead to cut it out. That is the reason why we added that 2 inches extra. So I'll place the two fabrics right sides facing each other this way, and then I'll measure what I have on this point. This is going to be the opened part. So I have about 20 inches here, so that means I'll be taking in 1/2 inch on both sides to create my 19 inches for the neckline. So I'll stitch the upper part as well using 1/2 inch, and I'll also go ahead to close up the sides using 1/2 inch as well, following the same shape, and I'll do the same thing for the other side. When I'm done with that, I'll show you guys what it looks like. So guys, after stitching, this is what we have. I'm just going to go ahead to confirm that I have the same 19 inches for the neckline, which is accurate. Before I turn over, I will cut out the excess seam allowance so that the collar relaxes well on the right side. So make sure what you have on that opening is the same thing with what you measured on the neckline of your shirt. That is the only way it is going to fit in perfectly. So I'll use my scissors now to bring out the edges, and then I'll go ahead to iron it out. So this is just a simple cut together collar for your shirt. So after I ironed out, this is what it looks like. You can see how beautiful it looks already. The next thing now is to attach it to the shirt. So I'm going to get the neckline of my shirt and just fix it into that opening like this. So this is why you must make sure that the measurement you have on the neckline is the same as the opening on your collar, so that it fits in perfectly without any gap. I'm going to go ahead and place it this way and then stitch it all the way down. Make sure you stitch very close to the edge of your collar. I'll stitch it all the way down. So after stitching, this is what it looks like. You can see how beautiful and neat this looks already. The final thing we want to do is to create our buttonholes and our button. So for a female shirt, your button is going to be on your left hand side while your buttonholes will be on the right. So I'll go ahead now to mark out the point where I want my buttonholes to be. So I've marked out the first one, which is about 1 inch, as you can see. So from that point, I'll come down by 3 inches. My buttons are going to be 3 inches apart, and then I'll come down by 1 inch again and just mark out the points. I hope you guys can see what I'm doing. So that straight line is going to be where I'll be creating my buttonholes. So this one, I'm just trying to do like a guideline so that I know where I'm stitching on. So 3 inches apart, as you can see, and then I'll take 1 inch between those points. So your button spacing can be between 2.5 to 3.5 inches, just depends on what you want. So after marking out, I'll take it to my sewing machine and create the buttonholes. So guys, after creating, this is what it looks like. Maybe I'll do a separate video to show you guys how to create a buttonhole for your shirt. So I'll sew my buttons now on the other side, on the left hand side, and that will be the end of this video. So guys, I hope you found this video useful and I hope you learned something new. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.